I was 13 in 2003 when the final season of Buffy was airing, and while I had no context for it, I watched along with a friend from school. My first episode was same time, same place for the record, and I ended up enjoying it a lot, and said friend started lending me the whole series on VHS tapes over the course of several months, and I was absolutely blown away. Buffy ended up becoming one of those shows that totally shaped my adolescence, as it did for lots of us at around that age. It was almost perfectly designed to speak to your typical angsty, fantasy-obsessed, nerdy teenager. It was dark, brooding, at times melancholy, but it was also offbeat, sarcastic, and with some of the most likeable and well-rounded characters that I've ever seen on TV. Even in bad episodes, you'd have so much fun being around Buffy, Xander, Willow, Giles, and the ever-expanding cast that you'd barely even notice that the plot wasn't too strong this week. The season that I didn't really like that much during this initial early teens watch through though was season 6, aside from the obvious Once More with Feeling and the odd episode or two here and there. Seasons 1 to 3 spoke to me because I was around the age that Buffy and co were at, and translating typical teenage experiences of relationships, social alienation and all that stuff into fantasy horror scenarios made a lot of sense in appealing to the demographic that I was a part of. And while I wasn't yet the age for higher education, season 4 was a solid continuation of the show post high school and had some of the most ingenious high-concept stories that the show's ever seen, a silent episode, a reality rewrite, and the incredibly famous Dream episode Restless, which is still my overall favourite. That and you already liked the characters a lot regardless of whether you immediately related to it. Buffy was a show that did characters so well that pretty much anyone can get suckered into it and suddenly find that they've been watching 10 episodes a day and you haven't seen any friends or family members in 6 weeks and everyone assumed you were dead. Season 5 I felt was a bit of a step down at the time, though it's really grown on me in the years since, like 6 has. The addition of Dawn, the retconned-in sister, was grating for a lot of people at first. Though in Dawn's defence, she did get a lot stronger in Season 7, and she's vital in making the body as effective as it is too. I suppose the problem I had with Season 5 at the time was that it didn't have as many standalone distinctive episodes that lodge in your brain like the previous seasons. Aside from the body, of course, that and I do really like Family a lot. It did have a lot of good comedy and those moments that you really remember, but it was more dedicated to the season-long arc than it was before. They'd had each season's big bad slowly building episode by episode in the past, but the big bad took more of a centre stage role in Season 5. It takes the stakes as high as they can go, and the supernatural events and the real-world events of the season echo each other in an interesting way. Buffy's life is taking a turn for the worse on pretty much all fronts. Her relationship with Riley falls apart, her mother's health deteriorates before Buffy comes home one terrible afternoon and finds her dead on the couch. And at the same time that it feels like her world's ending, an all-powerful god named Glory is orchestrating this grand apocalyptic scenario. It all reflects the stage of her life that Buffy's going through, coming out of the structured chaos of education that you've existed in for as long as you can remember, and learning to deal with human tragedy that's kind of just been a concept to you up until this point. This time of your life can feel like the end of the world to you. It almost feels like your former self is physically dying, and finding your feet again can be like clawing your way out of your own grave. And that's where Season 6 comes in. Some bits of media you just need to have life experience to fully appreciate, and Buffy Season 6 was one of them for me. It was ploddy, directionless, miserable, so much stuff that Buffy said and did felt completely out of character, and all of that was why I didn't like it that much as a kid, and also why it started to really click with me in my late teens, early 20s. It's far from perfect, there are some filler episodes, Dawn's more annoying than ever, and Hell's Bells really pissed me off, but any kind of frustration and misery that Season 6 might induce in the viewer is part of the point. Episodes like Flooded, Life Serial, and Double Meat Palace really spoke to me when I rewatched a large chunk of the series over one depressing weekend after I just got back from university. Buffy's just come back from the dead and been hit with the news that the roof over her head is in trouble and that her life is totally directionless. To make matters worse, fighting evil takes precedence over everything else, so she'll always be forced into having to struggle financially and socially because of something that she didn't ask for. Life.
Buffy's never gonna be a lawyer or a doctor. Anything big.
She's a slayer. She saves the whole world. That's way bigger.
But that means she's gonna have like crap jobs her whole life, right?
Yeah, I will never understand why I seem to be the only person who likes Double Meat Palace quite a lot.
Guess we're gonna get kinda greasy, huh?
Skin, hair, eyelashes, inside your ears. You want to look inside my ears?
No, that's okay.
While there are some stupid creative decisions and having it mid-series is weird, I personally think it communicates the theme of real-life grind that Season 6 was going for really well. Yes, it is kinda stupid, but it's just full to bursting of sparkling little moments like that are just cold, hard reality disguised in uncanny, strange, out-of-place and awkward humour. Yeah, Buffy fans who've dismissed Double Meat Palace in the past, I really recommend rewatching it. There's tons of great moments like that in there. There's so much stuff in Season 6 that I like that I often forget it contains my second favourite episode, second only to Restless, Normal Again. I can't believe this show gets away with suggesting that the entire show so far has been a fevered dream and the character is in an insane asylum, and it could have been one of the shittest ideas ever, but it's executed so well and I just love it to bits. But not only that, Normal Again continues to play into this struggling to cope with how things are narrative. Life's become so stressful and ridiculous for Buffy that it almost has to be a dream. Nothing makes sense. The big bad is 3 random nerds. Xandra and Anya seem perfectly fine, but really aren't. Willow and Tara's relationship is torn apart by addiction, something you'd never expect of Willow of all people. And of course Buffy has a sort of not really relationship with Spike, which might not make as much sense as a teenager as it didn't for me when I first watched it when I was like 14, but if you've known people in these types of incredibly unhealthy relationships, you understand why she's in it.
Do you even like me?
Buffy and Spike's complicated sexual relationship is one that she enters into because she feels so numb and tired by everything, and those intimate moments with a vampire she despises are the only way that she can truly feel something. She just wants to feel something. Anything. And this is the vampire who actually fell in love with her prior to her death and rebirth, and for whom she's shown nothing but abject disgust for in the past. Yeah, teenagers with limited experience with sex and relationships in general probably wouldn't understand this all that well, but I totally get it now. And that scene where she admits it all to Tara and breaks down just kills me every time.
It's wrong. I'm wrong. Tell me that I'm wrong, please. Please don't forgive me. Please.
I even like the Dawn angle of this season, although yes, she is very annoying and so unlikable, and all the way is dreadful even by the standards of obvious filler. With Dawn, it does start to feel like they're over-egging her teenage angst and overdoing her being totally unreasonable in a lot of the fights with Buffy, but if you think about things from Dawn's perspective, growing up in a dysfunctional household, her mum died last year, her sister's buckling under the strain and she just doesn't understand why. I don't know, as grating as Dawn is, she just seems very real to me. Maybe too real, and that's why people don't like her. But she plays her part in making Season 6 what it is. Getting on to Willow, while I will admit that magic as a metaphor for drugs is a bit of an obvious path to go down, and you may feel like you're being beaten over the head with how obvious it is at times, but I kind of feel it needed to happen this way in order to shape Buffy into the woman she is by the end of the season. Willow was always the level-headed, reliable and grown-up one. If you're going to have Giles leave because he feels like he's coddling Buffy and she needs to be able to deal with real-life crises on her own in order to properly mature, well, you've kind of essentially got a Giles replacement on hand with Willow. So having Willow go off the rails without actually having to literally make her a meth head does kind of make sense. Having a totally debilitated, recovering junkie Willow during the second half of Season 6 just makes everything feel even more fractured and that Buffy and her friends' lives are a total mess, because that's how things do feel at this time of your life. That and this is pretty much the only way that you could reasonably break Tara and Willow up, get them back together, and have that scene at the end of Seeing Red where she dies be as much of a shotgun blast to the stomach as it is. Tara and Willow's relationship was pretty much perfect beforehand, and just having it be solidly perfect and then tragedy would feel a bit cheap. But if you add the believable struggle, breakup, road to recovery, reconciliation, reunion, and then tragedy, in terms of structure, I don't see how you could have made this more effective than it already is. The events leading up to and triggering the Dark Willow saga are assembled so damn well, and I can't praise them enough. And the Dark Willow saga itself, where everything totally spirals out of control and it feels like things will never be the same again, is fucking intense. In fact, the Willow and Tara stuff is so good that it almost lets me overlook the weakest angle of Season 6, and easily one of the weakest angles in the entire history of the show. Xandra and Anya. God, what a letdown Hell's Bells was. I am glad that Xander and Anya don't get a happy ending because 1, we got Selfless out of it, and Selfless is fucking incredible, and 2, structurally, you need them to not have a happy ending as everything going off the rails and then a brief moment of calm is necessary before the chaos of the Dark Willow saga. And I suppose in terms of actual content, Hell's Bells is fine-ish. The only problem is that they didn't lay the proper groundwork for it, and part of that might be down to just how depressing Season 6 is. As a story about cold feet, I get it. It's the type of story that Buffy would always tell when given a wedding episode. But Xander's still leaving Anya at the altar after it being revealed that the attempt to sow doubt in his mind was all a trick. I don't know, I just didn't buy it because they hadn't done enough to make his doubts feel real to me prior to this episode.
I had these thoughts and fears before this.
Having someone leave their lover at the altar is a very, very big thing to have them do, and I just didn't feel I'd been given enough doubt on Xander's part. There was the little I want to wait to announce our engagement thing at the beginning of the season, and there's the odd fight or two here and there, the hell of arranging it all, relatives, etc. But that's normal. All couples fight, that doesn't mean that things are totally fucked. I never felt that I got inside Xander's head and understood his thought process of wondering if him and Anya getting married is the right thing to do. A couple of episodes earlier, they're dancing at the bronze and everyone's happy while Buffy's up on the balcony providing this stark contrast and how distant Buffy's emotional strife feels from what's going on below, when internally, Xander must be struggling to process everything himself if he's going to end up doing this a few episodes later. Alright, you need some levity. If Xander and Anya had been falling to fucking pieces while Willow and Tara break up, Giles leaves, Dawn's fucking insufferable, Warren kills his ex-girlfriend after trying to rape her, then your audience might get so depressed that they end up wanting to fucking kill themselves because it's so miserable and oh my god, why is life so horrible, why? And alright, maybe this is supposed to be a huge pull the rug out from under your feet moment where not all is as right as it seems with the one angle of the series that's been going really well, and yes, the following episode Entropy is really bloody good, but in the moment, I just didn't buy it because the foundation wasn't there for something this big. A character I felt I really did get inside the head of this season was Jonathan, and I kinda wish there'd been more of a focus on him, cause Danny Strong's performance as him in Dead Things is fucking jaw-dropping. Jonathan's arc this season is one that many nerds will probably be able to relate to, because generally speaking, nerds like us do tend to become overly fascinated with supervillains. You only need to look at the insane popularity of the Joker to get a sense of that. He's not a character that you should aspire to be, he's a fucking murderous psychopath, but what he is interesting, and that is what lots of nerds aspire to. Jonathan is an underconfident high school nerd. He wants to be considered interesting and cool and powerful, but getting to the point of realization that what he and Andrew want to do to Warren's girlfriend in Dead Things is rape, and that he's then involved in her fucking murder, just that moment where he finally sees himself and wonders what the hell this desire to become an interesting character has turned him into is so chilling. And this ties into Season 6's arc of its main characters losing themselves as they feel directionless, and here we've got Jonathan getting wrapped up in something that's so dark and so far from who he is inside, and it provides a great moral of the story for nerds with this idea of being the villain of the piece because it makes them interesting by showing the tragic realization of what that actually entails.
What happens now?
When I was young, gotta be some more girls we could kill.
Fucking Jesus, that moment kills me. But yeah, Season 6 of Buffy is a unique one to me. It's easily the heaviest season, and it's not instantly relatable like the previous seasons were. You do need some degree of personal context for it. It's dark, horrible, and abrasive, and it's hard to love something like Buffy Season 6. It's an incredibly tough watch, but I'm glad it turned out like this. It was really comforting to me during some hard times. I wouldn't say it's the best season of Buffy, but it's the one that I respect the most. As opposed to what is easily the best and most fun season of Buffy, Season 7! Yeah, you heard me. Come at me, entire Buffy fandom! I was just kidding. I was just kidding. Season 3's the best one. Honest, that's what I think. Season 3! Season 3! Oh god! No! My skin! My beautiful skin!